Hello everyone and welcome back to What a Barb, a Polin podcast. I'm Ovs. We're absolutely down on numbers today. I've managed to scoop up Lecky as an offering for you. Hello Lecky. The other two couldn't make it. They ran out of time, which is very much a theme of today. For one, it was too late, and for the other, I don't know where she is. If you've seen Beans, please let her know. We're looking for her. I think she fell asleep.
Asleep, I think.
I don't know where she is.
I don't know where she is. But we're kind of not looking for her. We're just recording. Sorry, Beans.
We gave up. We love you, Beans, but we gave up. Only because it's kind of late here in the UK and we need to record it at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Lecky, welcome. We are recording this the day after our last episode, so we don't have any more life updates unless you've done something groundbreaking today since I last spoke to you less than 24 hours ago. No. Have you just basically watched the season a few more times?
No, I had to edit all night. So no, I did not watch.
No fun for us. We recorded our reaction yesterday and it was like 3.5 hours long. We're all struggling, basically.
Yeah.
So today, and you won't hear this for a few days, but I thought we got that little teaser trailer, didn't we, Leck? Yeah. Well, we heard about it when we were watching, because we were watching it together, and I think you were like, they've released a teaser, and then it was like weirdly tacked on, and then some people could see it, some people couldn't see it.
Yeah, you had to do some searching to find it.
It's very hard to find, but it definitely, I think, did we all watch it together? Did we all watch it separately? I can't remember.
We watched it together.
Yeah, I think we were like press play, and so we were very taken by surprise. This isn't like a whole trailer.
No.
It's very much a teaser. Who knows if we're going to get a hold of it. I don't know if my soul can take another trailer. It's so stressful. But we have a teaser, and now that we've had our reaction to the season, I thought, let's go through it. Hello, late Ovs here. By the time you hear this, many of you will know that the plot for episode 5 and episode 6 was accidentally spoiled online, so some of you will already know exactly what happens in this trailer contextually and within the episodes as a whole. When we recorded this, we hadn't looked at any of the spoilers because we specifically wanted to figure it out ourselves, and we also wanted to make sure that if you are avoiding spoilers, then this episode will be a nice, safe space. So if you have heard the spoilers, listen to us clown along. You can laugh at how close or how far we were in our predictions, and if you haven't heard the spoilers and you don't want to hear the spoilers, then you can listen to the rest of this episode knowing that none of it is an intentional spoiler at all. It was just us piecing together what we knew from the trailer and from crumbs. Happy listening. This is very much, we believe, we could be very wrong, that this is very Ep 5, Ep 6 heavy.
Yeah, so I feel like even when we were doing our crumbs, episode 7 and 8 are very much a mystery, except for a few bits and pieces. But we kind of had an idea of what might happen in 5 and 6. I feel like this maybe changes our perspective a lot, but 7 and 8 still remain a mystery.
Although that mystery will be enlightened soon in, say it together now, Lecky, Block 4 Part 2.
Yeah.
I think that's what we should call the episode. I just think we should call it What a Block 4 Part 2.
Part 2. Yeah.
Get it out.
Yeah.
So let's go into it then.
Yeah, we do have 13 pages here. Knowing us.
There's a lot of pictures, to be fair.
There are a lot of pictures, but this could take us some time because we happen to be a bit chatty.
I was going to time us.
I know. Well, she was going to time us because we recorded for 3.5 hours yesterday and we need to not give us much more material to work with.
Because editing is really hard.
Yeah.
But it's just us two now.
Yeah.
But Lecky, just to ease us in, how are you doing? You know, we're still recovering.
Yeah, I'm fine.
I still am struggling to get Pitbull out of my head. And I don't mean that in like a, oh, lovely. I mean, it's ruined my life and I'm deeply upset about it. I just can't get it from my brain. So if anyone has any way...
Yeah.
It's just the grab somebody, sexy, tell them it. And that is against my will.
Sorry. I feel like I keep hearing the instrumental covers much more than the original song. The instrumental is kind of taken over, eclipsed the original song.
Speaking of the carriage, should we just jump straight into it? Because where we leave Pen and Colin in the first part of season 1, what season are we on?
Devastated. He is going away on his travels, which will very much change him eventually.
Well, the first part of season 1 would have been post-What a Barb scene, wouldn't it? After she sent him off with Marina. That's episode 4.
No, you said season 1 though.
Yeah, but the first part of season 1, if we break season 1 in half.
Interesting parallel, I guess, there. She thinks he's marrying somebody else who has a secret. Kill me.
So we left Pen and Colin, naturally.
Yes, in a happier moment.
Post-carriage. In a happy moment, in a very blissful moment, he said, are you going to marry me or not? Classic book line.
Yeah.
Now, this trailer definitely picks up from that moment. So let's go into what we suspect to be episode 5, TikTok. Do you see how I spelt it wrong in here? I'm such a broken human being. I spelt it Tick-Tok.
That's all right. It's okay.
You can tell I'm like a zillennial, like I'm on the cusp.
Yeah.
But the first thing we see from this teaser is Enchanted Pen and Enchanted Colin walking into Bridgerton House. And it's very interestingly shot because it's sort of skewed. There's moments like this in the first part of season 1. Oh my god, what do I keep saying? Season 1?
I don't know. Can we not go back to season 1?
Can we not? I've done enough rewatches. Part 1, where the camera would sort of tilt when we were inside their heads, like episode 3.
Yeah, I think this is reflecting Penelope's mental state. Yeah, because she's just kind of flummoxed by everything that's happened.
So Lecky, let's take it back. He says, you know, are you going to marry me or not?
Right.
For a start, do you think she's going to hit the floor?
I don't think she is, no.
You think she's going to make it out of the carriage in one piece for a change?
She falls out, and that's why he's leading her in by the hand to make sure she doesn't fall over again.
He's like, we need an emergency kit, babe.
No, I don't think she'll fall.
That would have been a really funny ending. The talk about comedy, that would have been a really funny, like, gonna marry me or not? Oh gosh. Now, Pen's state of mind post-carriage, how do you think she's doing? For a start, she's had a bloody roller coaster of a day. And Colin has. He's had a roller coaster as well. But bear in mind, like an hour ago, she was expecting to get engaged to Debling, or at least she was expecting to be proposed to, and she was emotionally processing that. And within the space of an hour, she's been ditched by Mr. Penguin or Mr. Polar Bear. There's still debates about which pole he was going to. We're all confused. Editing obs here. I know he went to the North Pole, but that Shondaland article is in my DNA, and I can only think of him going to the South. Apologies. Also, have you seen everything that's done the research? And it's like, had he done that, he would have died because no one made that expedition safely for like another 60 years or something.
Who did the research? Somebody on the sub?
Someone on the sub. They looked into the passage that he was going to do. It's like, so it's like, she'd have just had to wait for a bit. So he was doomed.
Amazing. I love that commitment to research. But Penelope would have ended up a widow, so Debling didn't have to be concerned that he would be cuckolded because he'd be dead.
He'd be frozen cuckold, babe. He'd be at the bottom of the bloody sea. Anyway, she didn't end up with Mr. Iceberg. She's in the back of a garage hooking up with Colin. You know, who wouldn't?
Iceberg.
And obviously, you know, she's just had this huge sexual experience with him. She's with the love of her life. She's hearing everything she's wanted to hear her whole life.
Yeah.
I mean, I can only imagine that her head is absolutely frazzled at this point.
Oh, wait 1 second. Sorry. Don't hate me. My microphone wasn't on.
Lucky Merrick.
I'm sorry. We can use the Zoom for the first part.
Hello, everyone. Lecky just realised her fucking microphone wasn't on. So if the audio sounded shit to begin with, it's her fault and she's editing it as a punishment.
Yeah, hopefully that's not too bad, but apologies.
Have you decided to record a podcast properly now after a year?
Oh, Lord. There'll always be Zoom.
Welcome back, Lecky. Anyway, in recent weeks, we've been trying to get our heads around the fact that the timeline had shifted and that Penelope was going to be engaged to Colin before he found out about Lady Whistledown. And we struggle with that in a lot of ways. I think having watched the first 4 episodes of the season, we're a bit more sympathetic to her because, I mean, at this point...
Yeah. She's not thinking about that at all.
Whistledown isn't even a thought in her head, right? And then what's happening here is Colin's just like, let's get married. And do you think she's going to accept his proposal, or do you think she's just going to take his hand and he's going to lead her in and just be like, everyone, we're getting married, and she's just has no idea how to process it, so she doesn't even technically say yes, she just gets pulled along with it?
I'm torn about this because I feel like she's so happy I could see her saying yes, but it's also very possible that she doesn't even answer, but Colin sees her smile and takes that as an answer and leads her inside. And then the moment when she sees the rest of his family, Violet and Alan and Fran, is when reality crashes in.
That's a very Colin thing to do, isn't it? I think it's the moment before that, because the first few seconds of the trailer, if you look, they're walking in towards the drawing room and already the world is tilting. I think the moment she stepped into the house, I think it hit her.
I feel like maybe that's not, reality hasn't crashed in yet, but she's trying to orient herself, and I don't think she has yet processed what has happened. And maybe when she sees Elle is the moment when she's like, oh no, like, you know what I mean? Because I'm sure Elle won't be very happy.
Yeah, because in the carriage, I don't think she didn't expect that to happen, first of all. And then it's very much like Book Pen, where in the book, she was like, this might never happen to me again, so I might as well go for it. Which I will concede that the Pitbull song does work for that, because there is a line about that, isn't there?
I'm not well versed in Pitbull lyrics, but I believe you.
You're not well versed in Pitbull lore. Well, you've got no fucking choice now, have you? I think there's a line about like, for all we know, we might not have tomorrow, which is a very, very Book Pen thought that she has. And so she's kind of got swept away in it. And then I can imagine him just being like, oh, great.
Right, because she beams at him when he proposes.
And also, he's like, I've just confessed how I feel. You've just told me you want to be more than friends.
No problem. Yeah.
There's nothing in our way anymore. And so they get into the house. It's a nice reversal of the book scene where they pull up at the Featheringtons. And this is something that Jess Brownell, the showrunner, alluded to recently. recently when she was talking about book to screen moments. She said you will still have the same scenes, but they might be with different people. And I think this is a good example of it's the scene where they go in straight away after the carriage, announce their engagement, but it is a flip. Does he know that Violet's home? He must, because she left early with Fran.
When I first saw this, I thought maybe he was just leading her inside to continue what was happening in the carriage.
As he got married in his head, and he's just like, my wife, off you come into the house, because this is where we live.
I don't know if he's aware his family is home, but that he wants to tell them. Because when he arrives at the ball, I feel like he's so consumed by what is happening with Penelope that he's not paying attention to the rest of his family. And in the behind-the-scenes footage, he storms past Eloise to catch up with Pen. So for all he knows, his family could still be at the ball. But I think maybe he brings her in and intends to tell them, but maybe he intends to have some alone time with her first if they're not there.
Well, I mean, Gregory and Hyacinth are at home, so maybe he's going to be like, guys.
Biscuits for everyone.
He's like, Hyacinth, they've got to follow up on that prophecy that you made earlier. And I do feel a lot more sympathetic towards Pen now that I know, because if this is something she just pulled along with, and if this is the moment she remembers that Whistledown is a thing, and that really hits her. And I think we said this last episode that the showrunners made a decision to really withhold the Whistledown from the first part, almost as a way to make us forget along with Penelope. And then the second half is going to be so consumed by Whistledown. And I feel like that is going to like drop on Pen in the second part. So they head into the drawing room and there's this shot of Pen, and it's a very isolating shot actually, where she steps into the drawing room.
This is the reality crashing in moment, I think.
Yeah, because it's a very like she's framed in the doorway. It's almost like the walls closing on her.
Claustrophobic.
It's a very claustrophobic shot, isn't it? What do you think she's looking at? Do you think she's looking at Elle there? Or is it just everything? Maybe she's just watching Colin like going up to... Because we know that Violet and Francesca are in the drawing room. So maybe he didn't even get a yes from her and he just assumed it. And he's just bounded in and been like, great news, wonderful news, meet my wife. I don't know if you've ever met her before. Here she is. She's a little green fairy. And she's standing there paralysed.
Little green fairy.
She is a little green fairy.
I feel like she might be looking at Colin.
She's looking towards the piano, which is where Violet and Francesca were. I bet they're still there, and I bet he's gone over and he's like, wonderful.
But I wonder if she's maybe followed Colin's eye line over there, like he marches over to them, but she's left in the doorway.
Yeah.
Kind of like in 208, when he pulls her into the Featherington drawing room, he lets go of her, and she pauses in place in the middle of the room, but he's behind her, like closing the door.
He gets carried away.
Yeah.
And he doesn't like bring her along every step. He just assumes she's with him.
Yeah.
Because why wouldn't she be? I really don't think she's going to say yes.
To the proposal?
I don't think she's going to say no. I think he's just going to be like, great, yes, wonderful, let's go. He's going to pull her in straight away, and she's just not going to have like really processed it.
Maybe.
I don't even know if Eloise is home yet.
Yeah, I don't even know if Eloise is home, but there is the one shot right after that of them in the hallway, which I think is from...
Well, it's definitely from that evening.
Yeah.
But I don't know that Elle's home just yet because Colin and Pen left first. I wonder if they have this sort of like, Violet is thrilled, because obviously Violet sent him on his way to do exactly that. So it's like, job done. And they're celebrating. She's starting to slowly panic.
Hola, everyone. It's one of the now multiple vegetable lovers who also love Pen here. And I'm just popping in to give a shout out to the real MVPs of season 3, Enchanted Polin. And not only did they see us through the dark days of the wilderness weeks, thanks to the This Morning leak, and not only did they end up being the frickin' Polin dance and the carriage scene, but they are now the engagement announcement outfits. They're really putting a shift in there and we appreciate it. Thank you so much, Enchanted Polin.
So there's a shot of Enchanted Pen, so that same evening, again in the Bridgerton house, sort of pulled away, and Eloise is there and she looks less than thrilled. And off screen she says, you cannot marry him. So it could be a splice moment, but I think it is from this moment. And she sounds so pained and anguished and angry.
I think what happens is that Eloise comes home,
sees the celebrations,
hears this news and says, can I speak to you? And like pulls her into the hallway, and then we have Pen, this clip of her nervously saying like, Eloise, and she immediately opens up with like, does he know? Like that's
does he know?
Her first concern.
Totally fair play to Eloise, because I think she's given Penelope a lot of grace in part 1. She gave her a lot of consideration. We never thought that she was going to like deliberately out her, but even the way that there was such a softness to how she regarded Pen, and she didn't wish ill on her, and when she was suffering because of her own scandal, she was still concerned for her and the way that she wrote about herself. But this is clearly a step too far.
I feel like they would be able to keep Penelope a little more sympathetic if they kind of convey conveyed that she hadn't technically said yes to the proposal. She just kind of gets swept up into it because Colin is so swept up in it. And it is, you know, a dream come true for her, but at the same time, she doesn't want to hurt him when he's already embraced this idea of them being together. And deep down, she wants it too.
Of course she does.
But like, maybe he kind of forced her hand a little bit.
Yeah, it pulled her hand, quite literally. And because he thought there was nothing wrong. And that's when it hits her that there is this fundamental thing. And obviously, I think if Eloise comes back and the rest of the Bridgertons are like celebrating, it's a slap in the face. Because as well, it's, you know, her former best friend who she's lost from her life, and now she's losing her in another way and being blindsided. I
wonder if Eloise comes in and also sees kind of like a sweet moment between Penelope and Fran, because they also kind of have a bond now.
Of course. I can't blame Elle at all. There are a couple of assorted Bridgerton moments that we can't quite place in the timeline wise, but speaking of Elle, there is a really interesting shot of her where it's not on the same night as Another Night, but she's reading the very first edition of Lady Whistledown. For a start, I'm like, Elle, didn't you rip all those up, mate? In 208. She has a really interesting expression, doesn't she? What do you think she's thinking?
Do we even remember what Lady Whistledown says in the first issue about the Bridgertons?
It's the one where she's like, of all bitches, dead or alive. And she writes about the Bridgertons and mocks the alphabet, poor Violet. And she writes a thing at the end, though, if you remember on the cover, it's like, I'm here to reveal the truth. I don't lie. I'm here to hold a mirror up to society. I'm very much paraphrasing there.
Oh no, Pen. What have you done?
Sometimes it's hard to defend you, but we'll keep on doing it. Till the day I die. I love her. And so Eloise clearly been pushed too far and very much thinking about what she's going to do next. But, you know, Lek, you feeling up for a little family reunion? Guess who's back in town? I just want to say, Cantony's home.
Cantony.
How long were they away? Like 2 weeks?
Long enough to get knocked up.
Well, Gregory's arm's still in a sling, so they can't have been away that long.
Oh, that's true.
But Lecky, what did you just say there? A little Cantony news?
Well, Colin also infers that several weeks have passed during his low-key courtship with Penelope.
One day we'll construct a timeline, but it will not be today. It's just a few weeks, isn't it?
Yeah. So Cantony come home, however, and Antony, very interestingly, has his hand on Kate's stomach. I think that she is pregnant here. And later in the teaser, there's another shot just like this where he puts his hand on her stomach. So I feel like they are expecting.
So they're coming back with good news, and lovely Hyacinth is happy to share the family's good news that Colin is engaged to Penelope Featherington. How many Penelopes do they know is my question. But then again, this is Anthony who was like, Colin was dancing with Penelope Featherington.
Does not signify.
Well, it very much fucking does, Viscount, as they find out. Also, how adorable is everyone's reaction. Violet is beaming.
Yeah. Oh, Violet could not be more happy.
It's the fact that Colin is doing that thing where he's like looking down because he's so happy, and it's
yeah. And just her reaction contrasted to her reaction to the proposal in season 1 is so glaring. And yeah, I just love Violet's expression here.
Worlds away. And in a recent interview, Luke actually referred to the role that Cantony are going to be playing in the second part of season 3, saying along the lines of Cantony are really going to back up Polin in the season. And I think that's really interesting because obviously I think, you know, a past Anthony would have been like, why the fuck are you engaged again? But they obviously see the bond and everything like that and the friendship. But what's also interesting is, are we going to get it where the two do go to Cantony with the news that Penelope is Whistledown and that the Bridgertons do back her up? We will see. But yeah, happy days. Welcome back, Cantony, and little Edmund fluttering around in her uterus.
So I'm most excited about this next part, this next scene.
Because we're broken human beings, Lecky. That's why you're the most excited for it. A normal person would be most excited about like, oh, there's a clip of them getting together later. It's like, no, we're really excited about the rainy day in Greenwich.
The Heralders.
Because, Lecky, you're still recovering from the first carriage scene. Well, can I interest you in Carriage Part 2?
Yes.
That's right, dear listeners. We're heading straight back into Carriage Land, featuring what I can only imagine will be Pitbull's Timber. Because I'd like Part 2 just to be a constant like montage of like
Pitbull all the time,
just going through his concert catalogue. Like, it's going down, but let it happen. I have questions.
Yeah.
Is Ray with them? I suspect not.
No, I don't think so.
And are those curtains closed in the carriage? Lecky, this is all feeling a little familiar, is it not?
Okay, yes. So if you want to take a little walk down Crumb's memory lane,
Always.
if you listen to our Block 3 episode, What a Collection of Carriages, you may remember that we discussed some very interesting filming links from the Old Royal Naval College in November 2022 when episodes 5 and 6 were being filmed. In the footage, you could see the Queen's carriage pulled up alongside members of the Ton. A whole bunch of royal footmen were swarming the area, handing out what appeared to be flyers to members of the Ton. But what was especially interesting to us is that it appeared as though Colin's dark blue carriage was passing by on the road, and it was stopped in its tracks by the Queen's men. So a Bridgerton footman opened the carriage door, and a Queen's footman peered inside. We went back and forth over whether or not they handed a flyer to whoever was inside the carriage, most likely Colin, and we thought that he would then find out about the bounty for Lady Whistledown, and that does appear to be kind of what happens here, though Pen is actually with him in this scene. Another funny point is that the curtains on Colin's carriage appear to be closed in the leaks, as they do appear to be in this scene where we see them inside the carriage with the curtains drawn, where you can kind of just make it a little bit of the light filtering in. And in the teaser trailer, there is a shot of this exact day of filming where the Queen's men are handing out flyers to the Ton as the Queen announces the bounty. You can even see the 3 heralders on the steps with their trumpets behind the carriage. It's very cool.
We'll reshare the footage. This is also some of my favourite ever filming leaks because the weather was horrific on that day and the extras were fighting for their lives. And you can see in the show it's really, really, really horrible weather. But we have the answer. Like you say, we suspected at the time that this was the Queen's bounty and that they were going into the Ton, her footmen, and physically handing out the notices of the bounty.
Handing out flyers.
And that they stopped Colin.
Yeah.
And funnily enough, that's exactly what Colin reads out to Pen. So they're in the carriage together and he reads out from the flyer that he has in his hand, and in a joint narration with Queen Charlotte, "Dearest members of my most esteemed Ton, I hereby declare that whoever brings legitimate evidence of Lady Whistledown's identity to the palace shall receive a £5,000 reward." So it does look as though that's exactly what's happening in the leaks and in the episode. Colin and Pen are in a carriage. Why are the curtains closed, Colin?
Why are the curtains closed? Colin knows by now what he likes to do in carriages with Penelope.
Poor footman John getting his turn to shine. And they get stopped by the footmen who are flooding it. And Colin seems to continue as he receives the pamphlet. "Imagine unmasking Whistledown. Pen says, 'You will not try, will you?' And he says, 'Someone will surely root her out.' And he sounds fucking thrilled. Lecky, it's like you said last episode. He said, episode 2, we will dance on the day of her demise. He is ready to cook her.
Right.
He's already ruined Whistledown. He just doesn't quite know it yet.
Yeah. At the time, we believed Colin would have found out about Lady Whistledown's true identity by the time episode 5 rolled around, so he would receive the notice of the bounty and panic for Penelope's safety. However, we now know that he doesn't know about Pen being Lady Whistledown, and so when he receives the bounty with Pen by his side no less, and he ponders what it would be like to unmask her, he does not know that she is in fact Lady Whistledown.
Right there.
Poor Pen, poor Colin. Although she has slightly brought this one on herself, you could argue.
We're still in the trenches for you though, Pen. Don't you worry. And it is one of those things where it's like, Pen, you're in a carriage together. Get the boy's tongue out of your mouth and just tell him the truth. It's like, you can't say you haven't had opportunity. It's just you've not been using your hours wisely. I suppose you could say them wisely, but it's not that she hasn't had chance, you know?
Maybe they bribed Ray again to not accompany them on this journey.
Yeah, Ray, I hope you're making a fucking fortune out of these two clowns.
Killing, yeah.
Absolutely. But Lecky, they're in a carriage. Where are they going, or where have they come from? I feel like that's a song. Where did you come from? Where did you go?
Is it a Pitbull song?
I've got no Joe thing, you know.
If it's not a Pitbull song, it could be. Somebody commission Pitbull.
Where did he come from? Where did he come from?
Cotton Eye Joe, the Pitbull cover.
What a crossover. But I do have my theories. And as soon as we saw this, I was like, oh my God. Because in the teaser, we see a very, very steamy shot of Penelope and Colin in a never before seen room caught in a very, very sensual moment. It's definitely giving sort of pre-mirror vibes, if there ever was one, which we'll come back to in a little bit. And a little bit of a spoiler alert, but there's been another clip released in an interview with Nick and Newts where you could see a brief moment of Colin unlacing her corset.
Which kind of lends credence to the idea this is the mirror scene, because they mentioned that he undresses her in that scene.
Yeah, so this is very a connected moment. But as I say, the moment I saw this, I was convinced this was Bloomsbury, or like whatever the equivalent of Bloomsbury ends up being.
Yeah.
They might not actually live in Bloomsbury, but, you know, that concept. Lecky, for non-book readers, can you just give us a rundown of what we mean when we talk about Bloomsbury?
So in Romancing Mr. Bridgerton, Colin eventually moves out of the Bridgerton house and he moves in a new home in Bloomsbury. We've gone back and forth over the years as to whether we would actually see Bloomsbury in the show. I did not think we would, so it's very surprising to see that they may have actually included included that. But Colin is home for all of part 1, and it now appears as though he quickly buys a new home for the two of them. Very sweet. And it does seem like it could be like a new home that they purchased because there's drop cloths like on the wall and the furniture behind them.
And so in Romancing Mr. Bridgerton, it's his bachelor lodgings, and then Penelope goes to live with him, and it's a setup for one of my favourite lines. Home was in Bloomsbury, home was with Penelope, home was anywhere with Penelope. But Lecky, think about it, right? He gets engaged to her. He'd be like, I'll buy a home for you.
Well, we were also just talking about how Cantony might come back and, I don't know, are they going to reveal their pregnancy? I wonder if that could be the impetus for Colin maybe deciding to move out. Or he just really wants to be alone with Penelope as soon as possible. He rushes out as soon as he can to buy them their own property.
Because he'll be so blissfully happy at this point. Because if you think he's just spent weeks in absolute torment, he spent that day thinking he'd lost her. And the ecstasy of realising he can have a future with her. I think, yeah, if Cantony come back and they're like, we're having a baby, he's like, ooh, baby's future. I'd like to do that with Penelope. Let us buy a house. And I think he'd want to give her a house. I think the idea of them being together in home is just so beautiful. And also, yeah, they do need somewhere to live.
We know that Colin at some point is going to confront Portia. It'd be interesting if there is a scene with Colin and the Featherington family before this where he realizes that he would like to get Penelope out of that house as soon as possible also.
He wants to get her out and give her own home.
But we'll see.
Oh my God, Lecky, how beautiful if he's like, come with me, I want to show you something. She's like, where are we going?
I know. Oh.
And they pull up and he's like, this is our house.
It's our home.
And she's sitting there like, I need to tell this boy soon. Shit.
Yeah.
I will cry.
Well, I wonder if it's a scenario where she tries to tell him, but she's interrupted by him revealing this gift for her, this home that he wants to build with her, this future.
Maybe they're in the carriage and she's like, I need to tell you something. And he's like, and they pull up and they're stopped again. And he's like, whoops, stop. And then she just keeps getting swept up in these moments. Well, they get overwhelmed by passion, or they get overwhelmed by the situation, or they get stopped for whatever reason. And she just can't tell him. But yeah, Lecky, you're right. The reason I thought it was Bloomsbury, because you can see the dust sheets in the shot as though someone hasn't fully moved in yet. Yeah. And then the walls are also dark green, which is exactly how I imagine a Polin home would look, like a dark emerald green. They're united colours. And you know what? I can live with the loss of the flashback. I can live with the loss of Berkeley Square if it means we get Bloomsbury, because I've wanted that so badly.
I mean, I really still want the dance. I still really want Berkeley Square.
Hold that thought and don't give up hope just yet, Berkeley Square lovers. Little spoiler warning here, but thanks to a reel that was released by Netflix Latin America, a whole bunch of new stills from these 2 episodes were released, including stills of a Polin dance in an empty church. Many fans have seen this and taken this to be an interpretation of the Berkeley Square scene, where the 2 of them dance alone together. You're thrilled, I'm thrilled. So happy. We're going to dig into the church more next episode, but this is gorgeous and I cannot wait to see it in the actual show itself. Naturally, I didn't know this at the time of recording, so go back and enjoy my pessimistic self spiraling over the feared loss of Berkeley Square. She's gone, she's dead.
All right, well.
To me, the essence of Berkeley Square is that they're not together. So having it in part 2 isn't Berkeley Square.
From their perspective of the writers, I feel like they could have divorced those 2 elements. We've already debated this.
Yeah, we've already done a lot of divorcing. We will see, but hopefully we've got Bloomsbury. So when they're in this carriage moment, I think they're either on the way to Bloomsbury or on the way back, as he wanted to show them their new home. So do you think they're on their way to Bloomsbury then, when the bounty is announced?
Yes, in the carriage. It looks like the same dress to me as well. I wonder if he took her hair down, because that would actually be very sexy if he takes her hair down before he even starts undressing her. You know what I mean? You know, making that moment more vulnerable, like, you know, more intimate by taking her hair down.
Do you think he's like, Pen, I've got a surprise for you. Bought you a house. And he's like showing her the rooms and it's like, this will be our bed. And he's instantly like, Pachum!
Massive fucking mirror.
Here's the massive fucking mirror, and you know what? We're going to use it right this second. Like, the place is covered in dust sheets and he's like, let's get to it instantly. He's like, has the bedding even been freshened?
Her eye makeup also looks similar to the scene in the carriage. She has very dark eye makeup on her eyelids and in the potential mirror scene.
Do you think this is mirror then in Ep 5?
I think it is.
How do you feel about that, Lek? Because big thing about the mirror scene that fans have imbued with meaning. So it's once again our own fucking fault, isn't it? The thing about the mirror scene is we've always interpreted the mirror scene as being them confronting their true selves, so them knowing everything about one another, flaws and all, knowing all the different sides of one another, and having that moment of vulnerability where they fully see it and accept it. Is it difficult for you that the mirror scene, and possibly them sleeping together, is before he knows who she is?
I mean, it is. It does bother me a little bit because I feel like that in that moment they should know all of each other.
Yeah, especially before they sleep with each other.
The reason I think this is the mirror scene is because I feel like the shot of him undressing her. That just suggests mirror to me.
Also, if you look back at the moment in the trailer, like she leans back, but her eyes are sort of slightly open.
Also, this has the mirror promo written all over it with his hands just on her shoulder. It's very much that same vibe.
And it's in daylight as well, which has all the sort of themes of them being exposed.
Yeah, but that theme would have been better if he knew about Lady Whistledown.
It's weird, isn't it?
Everything has come to the light. But I will say, I wonder, I just shared an article with you where Luke said there is a moment in part 2 where Penelope reveals her long-held affection for Colin. So I wonder if what allows them to have this vulnerable moment is her opening up about the fact that she's been in love with him for basically the majority of her life. Yeah. And that's what's bringing them together in this.
Which is a good point, because that's something he has no idea about. Because in the carriage, she was like, I would be more than friends. And a lot of 3 and 4 was about him wondering whether his love was reciprocated. And he heard that it kind of was, but he doesn't know the depths of it.
And Luke says that it's a scene that he cherished because it so easily could have been left out. It could have been that they've now connected, shared those feelings for each other, and she didn't need to tell him.
Yeah.
But it's a real journey of them opening up and being completely themselves with each other, which kind of suggests mirror. And he says that's the thing that really connects the two of them, is that she loves him for all the qualities that he thought he had to hide and disguise, all the silly little things that he thought that his travel sort of eliminated. Now he can kind of reset. So I feel like this is this moment where she unveils that she's loved him for years and that she's loved him for all the qualities that he's been trying to hide. And now he resets, and this is kind of a moment where they move forward being their true selves with each other.
In their new home.
In their new home, apart from the Lady Whistledown secret.
The thing with the Lady Whistledown, I'm just trying to defend Pen a little bit. It's difficult in this. I don't know, the qualities that make her Whistledown, it's not like he doesn't know she has them. I suppose he doesn't know how vicious she is, though. It's difficult because he does know her for her wittiness and her barbs, but
I wonder if there's also a moment in this scene in Bloomsbury where Colin shows their new home to Penelope, and then he has a moment where he kind of feels self-conscious.
Yeah.
And she tries to pull him out of it by revealing, I love it. I love your home. I love this home that you found for us.
Imagine him running around the home.
I've always wanted
a home.
I've always loved you, in fact, and I've always loved the person that you were all along. And that's what kind of triggers this moment.
Because he gets very carried away, doesn't he? Sadly, not by fucking balloon, but he gets carried away by emotions. Yeah. And imagine him running in this house. Do you know he did in episode 2 when he was imagine it with me, Pen, and he's sketching a world inside that room.
Yeah. Daydream with me.
Imagine that they're in the house and it's all covered with dust sheets and it doesn't have her belongings, and he's another thing where he's and then this would be like this and this would be like this, and then he gets kind of abashed and
a little self-conscious.
Sorry, I'm getting carried away, or I don't know if you like it, maybe you hate it, and she's no.
Pulls him out of it.
I love this, and this is the world I want to create with you.
I couldn't want anything more.
Yeah.
Kind of almost a callback to that conversation with Portia where she's what more could you want? And this is all she's wanted.
She just wanted a home.
To let him know that he is all she has wanted.
Yeah. And it's almost he knows that she doesn't feel comfortable at Bridgerton House anymore. So it's I'll find you somewhere where you do.
Oh yeah. That's a good point. Oh.
He's we can have tea together on Sundays. Oh God.
Oh.
I've completely lost track of where we were. There's so many of the others. Also, listeners, just so you know, when we finished recording yesterday, so in our reaction episode, Lecky started sobbing about Fron.
Sorry, they really do make me emotional.
Was it Beans who was are you crying?
I swear to God, they really get to me. It makes me sad.
She's a cancer, what can you do?
I don't like unhappy endings, and the fact that they're doomed makes me really sad.
She just kept crying. It was very sweet. You know what? We speculated before whether Mirror would be in his room or her room, and the idea of it being in their new home.
Their room.
That is good with me. But the Queen's Bounty is officially underway. So Pen, you might have hooked up in front of a mirror, but you've got something bigger hanging over your head. Is this what we suspect then? Finally, the Queen is getting bored. Maybe she's annoyed about the Fron of it all and being embarrassed by Fran and Darnie falling through, and she announces the bounty.
Well, I think she might be pushed into this as well. I think that Penelope...
Oh no. What's she fucking done now?
I think that she might stop writing before the Queen announces her bounty.
Oh, I think she'll stop writing after. Ooh, we'll come to it. We'll have a tussle in a little bit.
Because if you remember, well, we'll discuss this later on, but Cressida, when she claims to be Lady Whistledown, she hints that it's been some time since the last issue of Lady Whistledown was published. And I wonder if Penelope, in an effort to appease Eloise, stops writing again. Of course, that's not going to work because that's not enough of a gesture. But the Queen at that point is so ticked off by, you know, the things falling through with Lord Samadani. And then also Lady Whistledown, her rival, is
disappears.
Yeah, disappearing. The only thing that has kept her remotely interested and also kind of enraged the past couple seasons has vanished.
The thrill of the chase, right?
Yes. Is it in episode 1 where she said there's something about the game and I'm so often the victor? And if Lady Whistledown is like, I'm removing myself from this situation,
there's no game.
No one will ever find out who I was. Then the Queen is like, well, I have something to say about that.
Pen, just so you know, darling, you can't get out of not telling Colin just by stopping writing. That's not really going to cut it. If she's like, don't worry, I don't need to tell him. I'm not. No, Pen. Nice try.
She has made this move in the past where she will stop writing to kind of alleviate her own guilt.
Yeah. How's that working out for you, Pen, is all I've got to say to you. Also, I'm just going to say, $5,000's a bit fucking stingy, isn't it?
Is it? In that time, what is it?
It's not many cows.
Have you done the calculator?
I haven't done the calculation, but it's not as many.
In the book, it's £10,000.
Yeah, from Lady D. That's not even the Queen.
Which was what? 2,000 cows? So this is only 1,000 cows, right?
It's not many cows, really. I know there's a cost of living crisis, but I don't know that there's enough money, to be honest. And how will Elle feel? So I was wondering if Eloise would ask Pen to stop writing after the bounty. I wonder if she goes to her and she's like, you need to pack it in now because this is too dangerous. But I like the idea that it could be before as a way to sort of appease her.
It just occurred to me that 5,000 is a weird number. If they were adapting the book, why wouldn't they do the original £10,000? And it just occurred to me that what if the Queen initially announces a £5,000 bounty and doubles it?
That's something she'd do. She'd like, you know what? I see it, double it, let's go.
Yeah. Maybe especially after the Cressida comes forward and pretends to be Lady Whistledown and she finds out that Cressida very much is not Lady Whistledown. The Queen is super pissed off and doubles the bounty.
Such an easy way to just sort of ramp up the tension.
Because it just seems weird to me that the writers would be like, oh, let's offer less money.
It's not that much money, really, for the Queen to offer.
Right. Why would they offer less money than in the book? It seems like if you wanted to make it more dramatic, you would inflate it. So the fact that they took down the number, to me, makes it seem like they're going to double it later.
There's space to go. That's a clever idea.
Yep.
Yeah, I can't decide as to... I agree that it's going to be sort of around this moment that Eloise... I think Eloise might tell her to stop writing, or... So your thought is to appease Elle's distress initially and her own guilt of not telling Colin, she'll just handle that by, like, burying her head in the sand, putting the quill in the fire...
And that's not enough for Elle. I don't think Elle will ask for that. I think that Penelope will instinctively do that, and that won't be enough for Elle. And that's when Elle gives her the ticking clock ultimatum later in episode 5 and says, you need to reveal yourself before the end of the engagement ball.
I just wonder if Elle will hear the bounty and then she's like, out of consent, because we've seen that sort of mixed concern where she goes through and she's like, you need to pack this up now.
Because then she's worried for Colin at that point also. If he's connected with Penelope, the Queen may assume that they are in it together because we know that the Queen can come to these assumptions. The Queen assumed that Eloise was Lady Whistledown.
It's like, this isn't just about you anymore, is it? You know what? I wonder if if Eloise is going to put a time limit, like, she still has to be really angry at Pen for not telling him at this point of the engagement party. Because, like, she's like, you need to tell him that. I wonder if Penelope is, like, still teasing the Queen at this point and riling her. And that's why Elle is like, you couldn't even fucking stop it, could you? And now you bring my brother in and the Queen's after you.
I think that Penelope is going to announce her retirement. That doesn't appease Elle. And in fact, incites the Queen to announce the bounty, which makes Elle even more worried.
Why would the Queen announce a bounty for Whistledown retiring?
Because she's upset.
I reckon it's more likely that Lady Whistledown says something really, like, calls the Queen out big time, and the Queen retaliates.
She could do that in her retirement letter.
Yeah, it's a good point.
But yeah, I'm declaring victory. I'm so bored. Maybe revisiting the boredom language and the Queen being bored. Lady Whistledown herself saying that she's kind of bored.
Like, what a dull season it's been.
Yeah, Penelope even remarks about how dull the season is. And if she says something like that, it could, anger the Queen. And I also just feel like the Queen is so invested in this game with Lady Whistledown. She wants Lady Whistledown's approval.
To, like, incite her, yeah.
Yeah, and so I feel like if Lady Whistledown removes herself from the situation, the Queen is going to want to find her. That's going to reinvigorate the Queen's desire to find out exactly who Lady Whistledown is.
And maybe get Whistledown to retaliate and get back in the game, which is all she wants. She doesn't want to chop her head off. She wants her in the game.
Yeah, she doesn't want her to disappear.
Good point. So regardless of who says what, we've got somewhere to be.
Engagement ball to get to.
Well, is it an engagement ball? Is it an engagement soiree? Should we just call it an engagement party? It doesn't look very ball-like, does it?
Yeah, it does look a bit like of a soiree. Like, they do have like a little quartet, but mostly people are kind of milling around and speaking. And the room they usually use for their ballroom from the Harmony Ball is just, filled with
cakes and sweets, basically. It's like, this is Colin's engagement party.
Colin planned the party.
He's got his appetite back.
Aww.
He only ate a tiny, tiny sliver of cake in that whole 3 weeks or whatever it was.
Yeah.
This engagement party is definitely not the first time we've been here, is it, Lek? Because we first saw behind-the-scenes footage of this a week ago, 2 weeks ago. I honestly have no fucking clue at this rate.
CBS Mornings.
Thank you, CBS Mornings. They released behind the scenes of a few very interesting, pivotal scenes at this very ball.
But those scenes were shot in the Bridgerton drawing room, not in the entryway here, the ballroom.
This is why I think, because we're at Bridgerton House, we've got a nice establishing shot, like you say, of the party, flooded with yellow and blue flowers, coming soon to a discussion near you in Block 4 Part 2.
I was trying to think about why they would go into the drawing room.
Yeah, so I've got a couple of thoughts on what's going on at the party. Okay. So we know it's Bridgerton House. And then we have a moment where Colin kisses Penelope's hand. She looks very happy. Portia's by her side. She has her hands on her hips, weirdly enough. But she's a bit like, I was wondering, how will the Ton take the news, considering that Portia spent episode 4 telling everyone that Penelope was going to get engaged to Debling, only for Pen to get engaged to Colin. Do you think they've been caught up in a little bit of scandal and we've got a little harmony situation where not many people are turning up? Or will people not care?
I feel like people might not care, and I also feel like Portia may be mildly annoyed that Penelope turned down on paper, a gentleman who could offer her a better life.
I wonder if this is a book moment where the reason Penelope retires is she's like, I've brought you the most curious of news. Penelope Featherington is with Colin Bridgerton.
Yeah.
I'm going to retire because this season's ridiculous. The Queen is so out of touch that she didn't even see this coming. And then, maybe that's why she retires. And maybe it's like, not a scandal per se. People are sort of put off and don't really want to associate with them.
Yeah.
Jess Brownell has talked about this episode, and she's talked about the game of charades that happens in episode 5. And when she was talking about episode 5, she said there was a big set piece, not in terms of like a big set, but there was a moment where she said it has a small group of characters that we know very well and they're all in the same room together. So I think it's, for whatever reason, it's a smaller function.
You mean a separate event to the engagement party?
No, this is the engagement party, but they've only invited a limited number of people.
Or, alternatively, I thought this wasn't charades initially. I thought that maybe she was just kind of alluding to the mechanics of the scene and having a lot of working parts. But I'm thinking now that maybe it is a charade scene because they need an excuse to get people into the drawing room. And so maybe it's kind of like an event like, oh, everyone, we're going to go into the drawing room if you're interested to play a game of charades. But regarding Lady Whistledown perhaps announcing her retirement, I was thinking, like you said, of the journal entry, the most curious of news, that would be also another reason that Lady Whistledown could give for retiring.
Yeah, the world's upside down. I'm not even going to bother anymore.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
But back to the engagement party, soiree, ball, whatever's going on, Colin makes an announcement to the Ton, or at least those who could bother to turn up. And he looks so proud. A little assuredly, fervently, loudly moment, perhaps. Very, very proud of him.
Oh, maybe.
He looks heartbreakingly, obliviously happy. I honestly thought that once he realises his love for Pen, that his days of being obviously oblivious will be behind him. But here we are again. Obviously oblivious for a whole other fucking reason. We are cursed, Lecky. We're cursed. I was happy to retire my name with Pen, but here she is making a fool out of me. Did you catch, though, that Eloise glares at Penelope during this speech?
Yeah.
And not only does Eloise glare at her, but Cressida is watching Pen as well.
But I don't think it's because she realizes. I think it's, like we've said before, Cressida is angry that Penelope has driven away
Debling,
the suitor that she wanted. That yet another, I guess you could say Bridgerton, that yet another Bridgerton has driven away a suitor that she wanted. Yeah. And I guess Cressida kind of targeted Colin a little bit in season 1 and even briefly in season 2, and Penelope interfered there. So yeah, I think that's why she's starring.
And like Krebling were a good match in the end.
Yeah, they were.
And it's like how pointless that he was driven away for literally nothing.
And he was her choice. And then we know that Daddy Cowps is plotting to marry her off to one of his older friends. Yeah. So yeah, her choice has been eliminated. So I'm assuming that behind the scenes, her parents may be making other plans for her.
You'd be pissed off. And then she's been dragged to this engagement party and she has to see Pen in her glory, as but Colin would say.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'd be pissed off too. I'm not gonna lie to you. And we have a confrontation between Eloise and Penelope. Eloise says, if it proves too difficult for you to reveal the truth, I will be merciful and reveal it to him myself. You have until midnight. To that, I can only say, fair enough, Elle, you know. Actually, fair enough. I think she's put up with a lot and this crosses a line. And I don't think she's doing this to sort of hurt Pen. She's like, you've had opportunity and you haven't done it and he needs to know. And there we have the name of the episode, TikTok. Very different to how we thought it would be. I've always said this is like my favourite episode title and concept. And throughout the trailer, we have plenty of flashes back to the clock on the mantelpiece as we near midnight. So
taking clock element.
I think the earliest time we see is like 8 o'clock or something.
I did not look at the time.
I was trying to see like how much time passed during, and I think it's somewhere around 8 or 9. And then, so we have a few hours. I just have to say, I really like the idea. I love episodes where like your characters are contained into one set and there's like a time, or like it's in real time. We can see from clips that Pen is going to grow more panicked as the night goes on. We see her walking through Bridgerton House. She's clearly not doing great under the pressure. You know, we've always known that Pen's not actually great under pressure. She's great under pressure of her own. Like she's like, oh, I need to write a scrappy little Lady Whistledown and get it out by midnight. She's always been good in those moments. But whenever there's been external deadline, she like Marina and Colin or Eloise, she always is always her messiest moments. And she is clearly struggling. But there's another interesting moment at the ball or party, whatever we're calling it, where Cressida tells Elle, I will find a way to obtain that reward. So it's definitely the engagement night because her outfit matches what she was wearing in the CBS feature. So it's definitely within this context. So it's interesting that she's motivated by money, like the books. I think we'd suspected before that it was going to be motivated by revenge on Pen, but I don't think that's what it is. Whether Pen knows that or not is a different issue, isn't it? But I think she's motivated by I need the money one way or another.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the reasons that Debeline appealed to her was when she found out about his fortune, but more that I feel like she was more interested in him because he would remove her from her family. Yeah. But we find out earlier in the season, Lady Cowper says that Daddy Cowps has put them on an allowance, which kind of hints that maybe the family is in some like dire financial straits. So maybe there may be a reason that Cressida wants this money.
And she's going to get sold off to someone to bring in some money.
Right.
And so it's very human portrayal of Cressida, which I think we really appreciate throughout the first, but it really surprises. But Jess Monson is playing it incredibly well. This humanized.
She's amazing, yeah.
And it isn't like she's perfect and flawless. It's you can still see her grappling with both sides of personality and in its nurture versus nature.
Yeah.
And then we have the scene that we saw in the behind the scenes features by CBS. But Jess talked about this, how, again, she wanted this where they were all in one space and we just sort of saw the fallout of how that was going to work. So from the CBS behind the scenes features, we know that Cressida is going to make some kind of announcement that draws all the attention in the room. And as we saw in the behind the scenes and in this trailer, Penelope collapses. Well, what do we think is going on?
Yes. I no longer think this is a feint. Having seen this trailer.
Sorry, Pen, for doubting you, babe.
Yeah. Yeah, sorry. She is so obviously panicked. But yeah, I think this is going to be the big cliffhanger potentially for the episode. Yeah. Cressida's announcement is interrupted by Penelope fainting.
So as the deadline to midnight approaches, we're going to see, and I think this episode is going to really be immersive in. We spent a lot of time in Colin's perspective in the first half, and I think a lot of part 2 is we're going to be with Penelope in a lot of those moments. So I'm really excited to see how this is shot, actually. I think it's going to feel very claustrophobic. As we shoot in on the clock, we can see it tilting quite a few times as we get into Penelope's headspace. And her panic escalates. And before she collapses, and as Cressida makes her announcement, did you notice, you see this in behind the scenes, she's right by Colin's side. And I'm not talking about like when she's starting to collapse. I mean, the moment before, as Cressida's about to make her announcement, she's like there with Colin, canting near together. And if we're thinking that this is approaching midnight, like these last few seconds before midnight, I think she is like, I'm going to tell him. I think she...
At the party?
Well, she's panicked. It's a few seconds to midnight because she's right by his side, like she's right in front of him. Eloise has given her a deadline. It's like, is she going to hit the deadline or not? And in the last few seconds, you think she turns to him, right? And she's like, Colin, I have something I need to tell you.
I have to tell you something. Yeah.
And then as she says that, we just pull to Cressida. And Cressida's like, I have an announcement to make. And like Pen's like, what?
Yeah.
And the final seconds before midnight, either, I've got two theories. Either Cressida is going to say, I know who Lady Whistledown is.
That's what I think she's going to say.
With the extension of ... it's me.
I think the extension of ellipsis, it's me, will be next episode.
Well, had she been able to finish the sentence,
right,
I think it was going to be like, I know who Lady Whistledown is.
But Penelope is in such a panicked state in her mind that she's like, oh, fuck, even Cressida knows now because Elle told her.
Cressida knows, and Cressida's about to expose me. And I think that's how Pen misinterprets it.
Yeah, I think so.
That combined with the deadline is going to like overwhelm her. She's hyperventilating. She's going to have a panic attack.
Yeah.
Do you think that's where the episode's going to end? It hits midnight, Pen's on the floor, Colin and Eloise run to her side.
Everyone rushes to her. Right. Yeah.
I want Eloise by her side. I think that's important.
Yeah, well, we know Eloise runs to her.
Oh, so we're going to... God, this is a bit of a chip. Episode 6, Romancing Mr. Bridgerton. Let's go. So... This isn't in the trailer.
Yeah.
And, you know, we've always wondered, was Pen going to be in danger at some point? Because they do like to do that with the females, don't they? You know, Daphne fell off a horse and they thought that she'd been shot. Kate also fell off a horse and hit her head. Here we've got Pen collapse into the ground.
Well, and also Penelope's danger comes from herself, I think.
Well, very much self-imposed, isn't it, Pen, my love? But yeah, I wonder if Penelope collapsing, do you think Elle will back off a little bit after that and be like, okay, so you didn't deal well with the deadline. Let's process this in a different way because I don't want to kill my best friend.
Yeah.
But do you think this might sort of bring Elle around a little bit and like take that like furious fight out of her and be like, let's think of another way to approach this?
A little bit. I also wonder if will Cressida go to the Queen before she reveals that she's Lady Whistledown?
I've got a theory about that.
I think it'll happen after, and that she'll go to see the Queen, and the Queen will say she wants more proof.
Yeah, that's what I think.
But I do wonder if Cressida at some point will tip off Elle about her plan, and that will make Elle worry.
Yeah. Just be like, it's getting out of hand, Pen. You need to pack it in now.
Or maybe she'll think that's a kind of a reprieve, that Cressida is going to take the blame.
Hold that thought. Okay. Because we're going to what I'm going to call the floral ball. We have a ball in a new location. Lecky, who do we think is hosting this very flowery ball?
We think this is hosted by the Mondriches because the footmen appear to be in the Mondrich Kent livery.
Like a very bluey, greeny sort of outfitting.
Interestingly, Colin is also by Alice and Will's side in some of the shots from the teaser. So I wonder if this is maybe the start of him repaying his debt toward Will, because we saw in episode 4 that the fact that Will has decided to keep his bar open is causing the Ton to view the Mondriches kind of negatively. So I wonder if this is him trying to kind of salvage their social standing a little bit.
Throw his weight behind them.
By supporting them when they host this ball. Though I do think at the end of the season that the answer to that will be he'll be able to keep the bar open, but have somebody else run it.
Just hire a manager. Delegate.
Yeah.
Delegate. The conclusion to the Mondrich storyline, delegation. Yes. And there is an interesting moment where the Queen walks in. It looks like she catches Alice's eye, so I agree that it's the Mondriches. Just another little spoiler warning here. Again, thanks to that reel that was released by Netflix Latin America, we have additional stills from the floral ball, and it's none other than our Pen and Colin dancing together. Very, very sweet. Who knows what's going to go down here at this ball, but at least for 2 minutes, they're happy dancing. And what a little ball it's going to be, because the ball is interrupted by footmen bringing in a new Lady Whistledown edition on a platter. But Lecky, it's looking a little bit strange, is it not?
Yeah, they're not the traditional sheets of Lady Whistledown. First of all, they're much shorter, almost look like a note card. And Ops also thinks that the printing is deliberately patchy in places, hinting that this is a forgery. If you look at it closely, you can see that kind of the ink is lighter in some places.
Yeah.
The printing is not quality.
Yeah.
It's not the quality issue of Lady Whistledown that the Dawn usually receives.
Clearly, Cressida has gone to the dodgy printers, whereas Pen, we go for high quality. Yeah. Also, if that's not true, I just want to say, if it's just the production team making them, I'm really sorry if that's offended you. They're great. If that...
I feel like that's a detail they would include.
It's like dodgy letter Ks, you know? We've been down the dodgy letter K path before. Let's go down the dodgy printing.
And if you look at the note card closely, you can see that it reads,
"Oh, dearest gentle reader, it is said that there is no rest for the wicked. If that is true, this author must be rather virtuous, for I have been enjoying a much-needed respite from observing all of you. Not to worry, I am back. Pen shall return soon enough with a full issue. You may now know my name, but I know you even better. Yours truly, Lady Whistledown, or forever now, Cressida Cowper.
My, Lecky Merrick.
If you haven't read Romancing Mr. Bridgerton, this is something that also happens in the book where Cressida claims that she is Lady Whistledown. But this proves that Pen quit Lady Whistledown as well, because if you see her words are, she says that, I have been enjoying a much needed respite from observing all of you. This proves that Penelope has not been writing Lady Whistledown, and that's when Cressida stepped in to claim, to fill her shoes.
And there's a really interesting moment at this ball, so everyone is very much caught up in the excitement, and there's a moment of Cressida sort of looking a little bit smug, or it looks like plan's gone well. But there's a moment where Colin looks over at someone. We don't see who he's looking at, but he's very shocked as the note cards are all read around him. Do you think he's looking at Eloise because he's like, your best friend is Lady Whistledown?
And has been insulting me.
I mean, Colin, not wrong.
Yeah, more misunderstandings.
Colin, you're wrong. It is a best friend of Eloise's. It's just not the one you're thinking of, darling.
Yeah.
But yeah, and that adds to his theory of either you didn't know and you were so careless, which came up in episode 2, right? You were so careless to trust Cressida. Or, even worse, you did know that Cressida was Whistledown.
This is good also because if Colin actually voices this opinion to Eloise, it will make audiences wonder if she's going to, again, reveal Penelope's secret. Is Eloise just going to take the brunt of that accusation again, that she is to blame for, being an ally for Lady Whistledown, when in truth, Eloise knows who Lady Whistledown is, and it isn't Cressida.
Yeah, and she's been protecting her. And so, of course, like you said earlier, we have a moment, it's hard to place, where Cressida visits the Queen. So it's all a debate, isn't it, as to whether, Cressida ends up finishing that sentence in the TikTok ball where she's like, I know who Lady Whistledown is. And if she doesn't get a chance to say who it is, and she decides to do it by note card.
It actually makes more sense that she goes to the Queen first, and the Queen demands proof. Yeah. And now we have the shitty copy of Lady Whistledown.
Yeah, again, production team, sorry if it's
potentially deliberate shitty plot.
Yeah, I like that. Maybe she goes to her directly and is like, it's me. And the Queen's like, babe, I need something more than that. And so she has a sort of delivery with the insignia and everything.
Also ties into season 2 where Penelope says, I can't go to the Queen. She'll, ask for proof.
She'll believe me. Yeah, exactly. It's a good point, isn't it? Especially when there's a monetary reward. It's like, I'm not just going to give the money to anyone, which is what Lady Danbury says. And then Pen retaliates. So I was wondering, will this whole thing start to turn Eloise against Cressida? Because it adds tension that Eloise knows it isn't Cressida, or maybe she's happy. Here's the thing, right? In the books, because obviously you have the carriage scene in the books where the piece of paper that Penelope is writing when she's discovered by Colin is her rebuttal that Cressida is Lady Whistledown.
Yeah.
And Colin is so upset because he's like, why can't you just let Cressida take the fall? And I wonder if this moment is going to be given to Eloise in the show, and she's going to visit Penelope, and she's like, she's given you the perfect way out. Oh, but then it's like, wouldn't Eloise still want her to tell Colin? But maybe she's like, Cressida is giving you a way out. Stop writing, confess to Colin, agree that you won't write anymore, start a clean slate with my brother, and let Cressida go and save yourself from the danger of the Queen.
But Penelope cannot do that.
She can't do it.
Because she, obviously, like in the book, she can't let Cressida claim to be the one thing that she's proud of, that she's built for herself.
I wonder if it's a moment where it almost builds a Penelope's reconciliation moment, where Eloise reaches out and she's like, we can all start again. You can start again with my brother, we can start again, and Pen can't do it.
Put it behind you.
She can't do it. Because it goes against everything, and it's her work and it's her identity.
Yes, that'd be another clever way to adapt to that element from the book, but instead of Colin pressuring her to hang up Lady Whistledown, it's Eloise saying, Cressida has, she saved you.
Yeah.
You accept this. Yeah.
But either way, Pen does react like she does in the book. Although we only see her writing a takedown of Lady Whistledown, we can see a few of the words.
In case this author has not said it plainly enough, read this clearly now. Cressida Cowper is a liar, a fraud, a charlatan. Perhaps she is too plain. And then it just goes on and on. It's basically a savage takedown of Cressida. It's another installment of Penelope's burn book. Love it.
What's interesting is this draft says, in case this author has not said it plainly enough, so is this not the first time she's written a rebuttal about Cressida?
Yeah, interesting.
I'm not sure.
Weird, isn't it? But regardless, this is definitely Penelope taking it too far again. and not being able to let it go. And this is my theory, Lecky, of how episode 6 is going to end. I reckon that Penelope's going to take this draft to print, this exact edition of what she's writing.
I think so too.
It's the same material as Romancing Mr. Bridgerton when he finds her. It's the same message. I think Colin's going to see her. He's going to follow her.
I think
and
so
this
too.
is where the discovery is going to be.
Yeah, I think this is when it happens also.
And I think that's where episode 6 ends. I think she I don't know, like she's at the printers because I think she's still going to go to the printers and she's going to turn and he's going to be there.
And you know what that also makes me think is that the wedding is going to be the very end of 7.
We can't have a wedding early on. They're going to need to work through some shit, aren't they?
They need to work through the drama. However, before he goes to see her, I think he'll be, having his bachelor party with with Ben and Will. Potentially Anthony will be there.
Oh my God, what if he's like, I want to go see Penelope. He goes to see Pen after his bachelor party and then
he sees her leaving.
Oh God.
He follows her.
He follows her.
Because we know the boy likes to follow her.
We know he likes to follow her. And, he's feeling a little bit drunk, so he can't run after the carriage again, so he follows her.
She gets in a carriage. He's like, I really like when she gets in carriages.
But Lecky, because I think I said this last episode, like, if she does go to the printers and that's how he finds out how they're going to get home. Carriage part 3.
I don't think we mentioned this in our last episode, but we've mentioned it before that I think it was Town and Country magazine, they listed all of the Bridgerton season 3 shooting locations, and we know they shot at the Luton Hoo estate, and they said it functioned as the exterior of the printer shop.
Yeah.
We have not yet seen the printer shop. I think we're going to see the exterior of the printer shop probably in episode 6.
And it would follow the structure of season 1 and season 2, where at the end of episode 6 you have this huge turn for the couple.
Yeah.
And I think that is a story beat that it's going to hit.
It's just not what I anticipated because Tom Verica told us that it was going to be Polin against the world, and he shot the last 2 episodes. If this does play out as we're speculating...
Not that any of the season has played out as we speculated.
At the very end of episode 6, how quickly does he come to terms with that? Then they have their wedding at the end of the following episode.
The wedding could be episode 8.
No, it says joining of hands.
Yeah, it's a good point.
Wedding. 100% wedding.
Because the wedding, and we'll cover it more in Look for Part 2, it's difficult, right? Because what I will say about Colin, we've seen in this season, and yes, it's all to a lesser extent, he burns out really quickly with his anger. He gets really upset and he snaps.
You kept mentioning his forgiveness, his capability to understand people and their motivations.
He does. He forgives and he apologises. There's moments where he kept trying to reach out to Eloise and was like, and it would be so easy for him to hold a grudge, but I just don't think it's in him. And I think there's nothing more he'd regret than making Pen upset in that way. Like, he can be upset, but it's very difficult because he's going to have the worst reaction out of everyone, understandably.
I think he will go away to process his emotions, and I feel like also this may be a point where Eloise comes back in and helps temper his reaction.
She bridges the gap between both of them,
maybe,
because ultimately, if she sees how much they really do love each other,
the wedding is looming.
It's weird, isn't it? Because it would be tragic if they got married and he was upset. No, the thing is with Colin, I think he'll get over it. He'll be able to move past it because he'll kick into she's my wife, be it in name or not.
Yeah. But I don't think that's going to happen in episode 6.
Well, no, because I think the end of episode 6 is him finding out. I think he'll move past it, but I don't know if Pen will know that he's moved past it. We've got the whole bloody storyline about his writing as well to come in there somewhere, where Jess Brennell was talking about his writing comes in, which is very episode 7-y, isn't it? That he has to come to terms with the fact that his wife is this prolific writer. They do say a lot happens in the last 2 episodes. I think Luke said that.
We know the pacing of the season is very quick too. So I still think the wedding will be in 7.
Maybe they hash it out in episode 7, and then episode 8 it's Polin against the world for 1 hour.
Well, and then the queen drama when the queen finds out that Penelope is Lady Whistledown. And Cressida, potentially.
We've all struggled with the Pen timeline of it all, haven't we?
Yeah.
It's difficult. How do you feel about it now? Do you think we have more understanding as to why she hasn't told him? Or do you still find it hard to move past?
I understand why the writers wrote it this way. Jess Brennell said that they wanted the first 4 episodes to be more rom-com and then dig into the drama during the latter half of the season. I still think I would have appreciated their story more if she had.
I don't think we ever thought she was going to tell him.
Regardless of whether she told him or Colin found out, I feel like I may have enjoyed the story a little more if he knew before moments like the mirror scene where they're truly vulnerable with each other. And I feel like there's so much other drama. I also feel like there's going to be the drama with Lady Tilly, like a scandal there.
We did see a clip of her in bed with Ben reading Whistledown.
Them reading.
It's the thing with the mirror, it's not even it's the concept of the mirror. It's also if they sleep together and he doesn't know, the implications of him not knowing before he slept with someone.
Yeah.
Like, but I suppose it's like, well, technically he's compromised her from the moment he got in the carriage, so they were always on that one track no matter what. But it is still very like, he didn't know and he slept with her, and you can't really go back from that point, can you?
Yeah, beyond that, I would have preferred that in the mirror scene that they could have been truly vulnerable with each other, having known everything about each other.
Maybe we can get a little mirror part 2 in the epilogue. I'm sure he'll put it to good use.
Yeah, it seems we're getting another carriage, but I think, so we'll see what happens.
It's difficult. Having seen the carriage and seeing the setup, it seems the moment she gets out the carriage, she realises, and it's going to weigh on her. She's not just going to spend the episode being like, oh, lol, I'm just making an absolute fool out of him. It's going to weigh heavily on her. Because I know what they're doing. I know that they wanted their foundation to be so solid, like their love, for him to realise his love for her before they put something as big as the reveal in the way. But it's...
Yeah. In 7, they'll probably also have a conversation where she explains, like in the books, I couldn't let Cressida take the claim for Lady Whistledown. It means too much to me, but this is it. I'm not going to write more than that. And I feel like then it would be poignant if Colin reaches a point where he is proud of her and he actually doesn't want her to stop writing as Lady Whistledown.
Right. He listens to her, and that's the difference. Mm-hmm. And I think...
Her dreams. He knows her dreams.
I do wonder if she's going to offer to break off the engagement because she's used to people running from her. And I wonder if it's a moment where she's like, if that's the confrontation they end up having, where she's like, not in a threatening way, but she's like, if you can't move past this, then I'm not going to force you to go through with it. And that's the moment where he's like, no, we're a team. Like, yes, this has happened, and yes, I'm not happy, but there's no world in which I leave you in this.
Speaking of filming locations we haven't seen yet.
That wasn't where you were going. That's where you were going.
Well, this relates to the Brooklyn engagement, potentially. We haven't seen Clayton House, which looks very Featherington. So I wonder if there is a moment in one of these episodes where Penelope tries to remove herself from the situation. Or, at the very, very end of the season, we see Mr. Lord Featherington enjoying his new country home with her. So it's either Penelope flees there by herself, or I think there is a moment at the very, very end of the season where Colin goes to the countryside with her.
That's very Penelope, though, because in episode 1, when Eloise was talking to her, she was like...
I hid,
You didn't even show your face in the off season. And Pen was like, I thought you didn't want to see me. And that's... Pen's grown up with people not wanting to see her. And I wonder if she just assumes that Colin's strong reaction is going to lead him on the same path as Eloise of like, I don't wish you dead, but I don't want you in my life anymore. That's the life she's learned.
Do you think there will be a romantic moment where
he turns up at her door?
He turns up at her door and she thinks
it's over.
They'll never be together, but he turns up at her door and there's like the emotion in both of their eyes. And she realizes that he does in fact still want to be with her.
Paralleling the Eloise moment where Eloise came to her door and Penelope said, do you want to come in? And she was like, no, I don't want to come in. I've come to meet you here. But whereas Colin's like, of course I want to come in.
Also contrasting with Marina, where he said to Marina, if you told me, I would have, still married you. But at this point, she hasn't told him. But Colin loves her so much, he realizes that he can't be without her anyway. And he doesn't go after Marina, is the point of season 1.
He never fights for her.
So I feel like if Penelope runs away and he goes after her.
She's like, of course you don't want to see me. I'm going to withdraw myself from this. And he's like, no.
Yeah.
And I think that is what they've gone down. We hope that the difference with the Marina storyline would be Pen would not tell him, but like, it wouldn't get to that stage. Whereas I think what they're doing is...
showing us that his feelings are so much more immense and true than they were with Marina.
Yeah, and also more mature, because I think when you're young, you have the reactionary sort of thing of like, well, it's over then, isn't it? Like, it's done. Whereas part of maturing is sort of like...
forgiveness.
We can work through it. And it's something Pen needs to hear. It's just because I'm mad at you doesn't mean it's over.
And that I don't care about you.
Yeah, and I don't want a life with you. Oh.
And Colin realizes that the depth of his feelings for her outweigh the hurt she's caused him.
Oh, Lecky Merrick. I mean, who fucking knows with episode 7 and 8? But I think when we watched the trailer, we thought it was very just Ep 5. But I think there's a lot of Ep 6 in there as well.
Mm-hmm. I thought it was Ep 5 initially, and then rewatching, I was like, there are moments from episode 6 in here as well. But happier news.
Is there?
There is some behind-the-scenes footage that Tom Verica released inside the chapel. So we know they do get married. I mean, we can assume that they do get married. Though part of me wonders, initially we thought that Fran and John were going to marry in episode 5, but now I feel like there's too much going on. I feel like it could be interesting if they do a joint wedding.
They could.
Like in Pride and Prejudice. Because we didn't see Victor and Fran at the wedding either.
Well, I saw Victor Ali at the wedding.
I mean, we didn't see them in a costume. So we don't know if they were dressed as guests or what their costuming was, unlike the other characters.
Because we believe that they're at the same chapel in episode 5 or episode 6. Mm-hmm. But if it isn't a Fran wedding, why else could they be at a church? Because those leaks were always a bit weird. Because first of all, people thought it was a trial for Pen, which wasn't true. But there were clergymen there, but there weren't like wedding flowers and stuff like there was in... I wonder if it's like, and this is like quite bleak, But if like Pen is really suffering with her guilt in like episode 5 or episode 6, if they like go to church,
She goes to confess.
the Ton go to church every week, we just don't see it.
I see what you're saying.
If they just go to church and she's sat and like this sermon is about like guilt and dishonesty and she's there like, for fuck's sake.
There's this movie called Cold Comfort Farm, and Ian McKellen is this really like fire and brimstone preacher. And if there's a scene like that where he's just like raging about like lies and everyone's going to hell.
I don't know. I just thought of that and I was like, that would be quite funny in a very bleak way. Yeah. But I do think they still go to the church in Ep 5 or 6. Editing Ovs here, just jumping in to say that thanks to behind the scenes featurette on the Featheringtons that was released by Shondaland recently, we've had a sneaky look inside the church in this scene in episode 5 or episode 6. So in the behind the scenes footage, you could see Pen looking beautiful in blue, you could see assorted Featheringtons, assorted Bridgertons, even a Colin knocking about. So we are definitely going to church in episode 5 or 6. And a little spoiler here, but the new stills that were released by Netflix Latin America in that wonderful reel also showed that Polin dance I mentioned earlier, where the two of them danced inside an empty church. So maybe she has a fire and brimstone sermon, feels a bit guilty, and then dances the guilt away. Or maybe, just maybe, this is Pen and Colin dancing on the day of Lady Whistledown's demise, as he prophesied in episode 2. We will see. I don't know about the wedding now, because I think Fron would run the fuck away from a society wedding like that.
And also, when would they have time to do, is it a joint engagement party also?
Maybe they're engaged by this point.
Because we do see some glimpses of Fran and John together in the drawing room, but it doesn't necessarily look like they're engaged yet.
Well, we've seen in a reel that was released by the Bridgerton social media, it was like a little behind the scenes.
Yeah, but that's later.
Oh yeah, it is. Yeah, we see their engagement rings on Pen and Fran's hand. By the way, we've heard a lot of comments that Pen's engagement ring is Violet's. We've looked into this. Either it's supposed to be Violet's engagement ring, but the props department are using a different ring as a stand-in, or it's complete different because, Lecky, you pointed it out that like the petals, the caging, they're different.
They're too smooth.
So if it is intended to be Violet's, they've had to sort of find a new ring as a stand-in.
Swap it out.
But we will see. And you know what? Okay, I'm going to make you a little promise that we might edit out in case we can't keep it. We have teased you for Block 4, Part 2.
Let's do Block 3 again. Do we have to do Block 4?
We're going to try next episode. We're hoping is going to be a little gem called Block 4 Part 2. So all being well, we'll try and take you to the Polin wedding in our next episode. We recorded it in January.
And you could laugh at how wrong we were and how many inserts we may or may not have to include.
It's going to be a messy, messy episode, but it's our mess, isn't it, Lek? Oh, that line's got to come at some point as well. We'll see.
Yeah.
But Lecky, until then, where can everyone find us?
You can find us at What a Barb Pod on Instagram and TikTok. And you can also find us on any podcast platform and on YouTube if you prefer to watch your podcasts.
Beans, my darling Beans, love of my life Beans, do us the honour and sing us out.
Don't stop, make it pop. DJ blow my speakers up tonight. I'ma fight till we see the sunlight. Tick tock on the clock, but the party don't stop. Oh, no, oh, no, oh. Das violin, do 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 do. Do. A Polin podcast.